What's happening, everybody? John Hendricks here alongside Ross Jackson coming at you for another episode of Second and Saints. Week 3 actions upon us. Saints, Eagles in a Superdome, a big marquee matchup. But Ross, before we dive into all the fun stuff, let's talk about the real fun stuff, man. How's things?
I was about to say, what my how am I doing is not fun stuff to you, John? No, man. You got me. You got me. I'm better now because you care so much about how I'm doing and you call it very fun stuff. No, man, I'm doing great. I'm excited for this environment on Sunday and I'm ready to get to this game, man. I can't wait for this one. I haven't been this excited to see the environment of a Superdome since like maybe the Bucks game, Halloween, maybe 2019, maybe sometime around there. So it's been all good. How about you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing well, man. I just coming off of my youngest. His birthday was on Thursday, and so we had a party for him Friday or Saturday, and so it's a fun time. But man, I'm with you. Like Saints football, you kind of brought it up, but I don't know if the dome's been that lit since PJ Williams's pick 6 against Tom Brady. Like I think I was trying to remember the last time they were like that lit, and I think that was it. But it's crazy. Like I think maybe start there real quick. Is that they're 2-0. Everybody and their mama is on the bandwagon, unless you're Nick Wright, because he constantly
surprise.
Yeah, really surprised. But man, it's a crazy shift from the fans, and now they're the same people who were calling for Derek Carr's head last year and before the preseason and season. Now turn the corner on Derek. Like they're starting to sing his good praises, and then look, we haven't been that surprised because of the offense. The only thing that is surprising is that they have executed that well, in the 2 games, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. And of course, doing it against Dallas, but the offense is the low hanging fruit. But talk about the fan base, like in the national perspective right now. It's kind of crazy how this has just shifted, right? In 2 games.
Yeah, it's wild, man. And look, Derek Carr talked about it on Wednesday when he was doing his media availability. And he spoke about how needed to give the fans something, wanted to give the fans better football, right? I'm paraphrasing, but he kind of talked about how they didn't give them good enough football last year or something to that effect. And, just a self-awareness of kind of that's on me, and everything. And so it was great to see that. And then I think you see sort of the benefits and the Saints fans and the Saints themselves being the benefactors of that self-awareness of got to be better. And I think the fans are responding exactly the way that they should. Like when your favorite football team's performing, you got to perform too. And I think that we're seeing that. And I'm really, really excited to see what the Superdome looks like come Sunday, going up against Philly, the impact that they have, the fan impact plays and all that kind of stuff. It should be a really, really raucous environment supporting the Saints there. And I think that's awesome. And then from the national perspective, it's so interesting to watch people sort of have to figure out now how they really feel about New Orleans, and feel about the Saints and everything like that. It's just undeniable how good this team has been over the course of the first 2 games. This doesn't feel like a fluke. This feels like really, really good football. Yeah. And even though they're not going to score 40 points every game, that doesn't mean that they're not going to play winning football. And I think that's what people are starting to realize about the Saints. And it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I've thrown out 2018 vibes, right? Like in the locker room and just the thing. And to quote one of our, our media guys' favorite song, they're just, let's get down to business. Like that's their mentality right now. You know what I'm saying? Is that they come in every week, they're working hard. I mean, even just stuff as like Alvin had hit on last year is that, if a mistake it was made in practice, they just walk through it. And I think this year that they're putting more of an emphasis on making sure they clean up those details and such. And, even in practice, somebody ran a bad route and it was called out. It was a bad route. You know what I mean? Like that was just some of the things that happened. So look, it's what it is. But I just like the fact that the team, Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, nobody's getting too high on themselves, right? Like
Yep.
everybody's on this even keel, and it's still like, look, we've been here, we know what we're capable of, but 2-0, nobody's won anything right now. If you want to jump on the bandwagon, that's fine, but we still got a lot of business to take care of. And so Sunday is going to be a big test. I know with the Eagles offense, we're going to start with the Saints defense today. A tough task in Saquon Barkley and
Hmm.
Jalen Hurts. They're going to have a good rushing attack. We know that. I don't know how good it's going to be, obviously, because
Yeah.
this is a real big test for the Saints defensive line, but also they're seeing the first mobile quarterback really of the year. And so it's going to be interesting on that aspect. No AJ Brown for this matchup. That's a big loss for them, but they still have Devontae Smith. They have Dallas Goedert. They still have some weapons there, but Philly's kind of a team trying to figure who they are right now. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Offensively, they're not
Yeah.
good, but this is a game where after the way they lost to the Falcons, I guarantee you they're trying to hit back with some of their best stuff against New Orleans on Sunday.
Yeah, especially coming off that short week too. Like they want to make sure that they come out guns blazing. The tricky part for Philly's offense has been their inability to come out guns blazing. Interception and fumble week one on their first two possessions, and then you had a punt and turnover on downs last week to start the game off in their first two possessions against the Atlanta Falcons. That's been a big issue for them. But you mentioned the run game, Saquon Barkley, somebody the Saints have seen pretty recently, right? 9 carries, 14 yards with the Giants when they came to
Mm-hmm.
town. And so, the Saints have done a good job defending him, but this is a very different system, new
Yep.
offensive coordinator that's game planning for him. Arguably a better offensive play caller, I would say, in Kellen Moore than what we've seen from whatever the heck Brian Daboll's been doing these past couple of years, taking weeks off, I guess. And so I think that like that has been something to watch out for in this matchup is how it is that Kellen Moore gets creative, and he's going to have to get creative without his top wide receiver in this game in
Yeah.
AJ Brown.
Yeah. And look, the Saints are going to get back Marshawn Lattimore, full participant
Right.
of practice on Friday. He has no game designation, and and he's not questionable or anything like that. He's going to play in this game. He should start. Will Harris should be in the back end. This secondary is going to play gangbusters for all intents and purposes. But I think it's more about, can you control the line of scrimmage, and then what can you do to help slow down Jalen Hurts? Because I don't think you can
Yeah.
just stop him. And same thing probably could be said about Saquon Barkley, but it's just one of those that what does a good day look like for the Saints defense going up against a Jalen Hurts and a Saquon Barkley attack, and they have Kenneth Gainwell, some other guys that can change up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a really challenging system that they can still bring in. Even a guy like Britton Covey is somebody that had a huge role up against Atlanta with AJ Brown out, and so the Philadelphia Eagles being able to lean on him a little bit. A guy that really should be a return specialist, but hey, get him in space and give him the opportunity to pick up some yards after catch. Like that can be a threat. And so I think tackling is going to have to be improved from what we saw last week for New Orleans defense, I would say, and then of course containing the quarterback is going to be the biggest thing. And this is something we talk about every year when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. And the fact that they have to be able to stop the run and limit the running quarterback and all those other things, there's absolutely no doubt about that. But the thing that's really nice for New Orleans is that like they've added a lot of athletic players over on their defense that could potentially help them there. Saints were allowing the 5th most rushing yards to quarterbacks last season. And so you'd like to see them be able to kind of curb that a little bit. And so I'm looking for guys like Chase Young, maybe even a guy like Willie Gay Jr., who hasn't been overly involved in the defense so far. Maybe this is the game where he gets a little bit more involved to kind of play a role in utilizing their athleticism to maybe limit Jalen Hurts a little bit.
Yeah, I think, again, putting kind of the pieces together, because Willie Gay Jr.,
Hmm.
I mean, he was a lot of their guys. He's starting in the base with Demario Davis and Pete Warner, but he had that back flare up before week one. Didn't play a lot of snaps. He left the game in week one. He was out there on week two. I'm not saying that he has, they're kind of just playing it a little bit easy with him at the moment, but maybe he feels good enough in this game and can really show what Dennis Allen kind of hit on is the reason why they got Willie Gay Jr. is
Yeah.
that he's really good against the mobile quarterback. And of course, we'll see, but I don't think it's all about one person against Jalen Hurts, right? Like it's going to
Right.
be taking a village, it's going to be winning the trenches, it's going to be a lot of things. And I think it's going to be a little bit harder because the Superdome is going to be very raucous. It's going to be very loud.
Yep.
Like I'm expecting the energy to be 120, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying playoff atmosphere, but I think it's going to be some of the best that we've seen in years. And look, you finally got a reason to cheer, right? Like, I mean, it's just things are going well, and defensively, they're getting turnovers, they're getting some sack production. You know, a lot of these players that we thought would make impacts are making the impacts, and so again, it sets up a good matchup in the Superdome for Week 3. But you know, again, I don't know if the defense is the focal point here, right?
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely can be, but you know, it's I want to like tie together the defense really quickly, because I think that the big thing that I'm checking in on is the fact that the defense is still going to be the one that kind of like sets the tone for this
Sure.
team
Yeah.
early on and everything like that. But I do think that seeing how much Philly has struggled in the early goings is big for New Orleans, and something that they'll need to take advantage of, because John, they're scoring on opening drives all of a sudden over on the offensive side. And so when you're able to continue to limit what they're doing over on the offensive side of the football, it allows you to open up that sort of bigger lead and then be able to make things a little bit easier on the defense, because you know what they're going to be doing. You don't want Jalen Hurts rushing for 69 yards and 3 touchdowns like he did a couple of years ago. You want Jalen Hurts having to throw the football, because you just have an increased margin for error there. So I think it's got to come down to the defense to help to create that gap. But look, we got to talk offense when it comes to this as well. And so coming up, we're going to take a look at the offense, because Derek Carr has been playing like one of, if not the best quarterback in the NFL.
Hey, folks, John Hendricks here from Second and Saints. Look, we know it's the greatest time of the year again. Football's back, and it's here to stay until February. Look, over 1 million fans across 33 states got in a game last year by making picks on Underdog. Win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, whether it's touchdowns, passing yards, and much more. Who doesn't like apps? And Underdog has a real easy app to use. But if you're like me, I like to use a website too. So when I want to look at more stats for a game or look at splits for Alvin Kamara, this is a good site for us to go check all of that information out. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up with promo code SecondSaints, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SecondSaints, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. You must be 18 or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. I love Underdog because it's so easy to use and it's so fast to get started and play. Sign up process is really smooth, and they have a slick mobile app. So what are you waiting for? Go check out Underdog today. Use that code SecondSaints, and we'll see you in the game. That's right, folks. We got a sponsor.
Look at
Underdog
us.
Fantasy with one of our first big sponsors. So shout out to them. Man, yeah, it's just first of many to come, hopefully. But man, it's a good feeling, Ross. Just personally, that like what we've been able to do in such a short amount of time. But the real stuff, obviously, offense comes into view. You know, it's funny. Just one quick thing that I was thinking about on the defense before we do talk Derek Carr and all that hot stuff. Not to tease anybody, but you know, one of the last times they played, like they had Hurts that was over there. Like they just had all these rushers that had all that success. It was like they racked them up for over 200 something yards. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. But you know, it just it comes to mind like that. The Falcons game last year where they had every rusher was like over 7 yards a carry. It was just ugly. So real good test for him. But Saints offense, man, stealing all the headlines. Derek Carr's hitting the hee. Alvin Kamara looks fantastic. Your offensive line looks amazing. Rashid Shaheed looks great. Foster Moreau's getting after it and blocking. Like every part of the Saints offense right now is running kind of like a well-oiled machine. What are we missing here? First of all, anything?
I mean, I guess to an extent, like one of the things that we could say that we're missing in terms of that still is contributing to this offense is, of course, Clint Kubiak, right? The new offensive scheme and all these other things, or not missing, but in terms of like those contributions and everything like that. And then I think the things that you're looking at in terms of like where it could potentially be of detriment to New Orleans is, what happens when it all slows down. But here's the thing. I don't think New Orleans, and this is evidenced in the past 2 games, the fact that they haven't actually had to score 40 points to win those games, John. They only allowed 10 and 19 in each of those matchups. And so the big thing is, oh, they might not score 40 points or they were going to crash down to earth. They're not going to score 40 points. Sure. But if they score 24, then they might still win this game. Like, you can still play a different brand of winning football. And listen to this. Derek Carr is leading the NFL in passing touchdowns, or excuse me, is tied for the NFL lead in passing touchdowns with 5. He's got the highest touchdown percentage at 12.8%. He's got the most yards per attempt in 11.4. And he's got the highest quarterback rating, which is not NFL passer rating, but the quarterback rating of 96.2. And then is also leading an NFL passer rating at 142.4. The dude is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And when you have a quarterback that's playing to that level and you have a system that supports that and all those other things, sure, you might not score 40 points, but you might score 30. And that might be enough for you to win a game when you have a defense that's giving up 14.5 points per game at the moment.
Yeah, it's all I've been saying for the past several years. The Saints defense has been good enough in some of these games to win. They just needed to put some points up on the board. Like San Francisco, they did everything they should have defensively, but they couldn't score a touchdown. Some of these other games where it's just like, it's crazy, the low scoring games and the fact that the offense just can't get it together and the defense is doing everything they can to stop them. I mean, finally, I feel like as of right now, we've got the harmonious symphony, the orchestra, everybody's playing on key, everybody's in tempo and rhythm. Like, it looks great. I mean, it looks great. I mean, this is the hottest offense in the NFL, right? I mean, and everybody's taken back by it and such. And look, even people want to doubt it, right? Like, oh, well, it's Mike Zimmer defense. Oh, well, it was just the Panthers. I mean, they had the gimme opponents last year and they couldn't deliver. You know what I'm saying? Like, in that way, like the only thing was what? New England, and that was early in the season. So,
and since when has Mike Zimmer been a bad defensive coordinator? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mike Zimmer's been around for a long, long time. So yeah, that's a good call. And look, they got another one this week. I mean, Vic Fangio. I mean, that's a big one too to go up against. And so, man, this offense playing exceptionally well. Derek Carr is a part of that. I mean, he threw 11 passes against the Cowboys and won, and he still finished with over 240 yards and a couple scores. Is this more about, and I think the big elephant in the room is Taysom Hill, questionable with a chest injury, limited in practice. From what we saw on Friday, I'd be surprised if he plays, and even if he does play, I think it's going to be extremely limited on what he actually does. But Dennis Allen kind of saying they're going to see what happens, and if Taysom can play, he'll play, right? I mean, but that could be a severe loss for their offense. Can they still get the job done if Taysom doesn't play?
Yeah, I think they can. And look, you're gonna lose some talent when you lose Taysom Hill. There's no doubt about that. But the thing about the New Orleans Saints, and be ready for this, is that they have an offensive identity, and they're not going to change that identity because somebody's not there. Like, the Saints are going to do what it is that the Saints do. They're going to play their brand of football. This is why you want teams to have an identity on the offense, or really on either side of the football, right? You have to have that identity. That way you're always playing to the same core set of beliefs, core tenets, whatever it might be, regardless of who's in, out, whatever. Now, losing Taysom Hill is going to have an impact. And the impact is you got to go find the 27 players that are going to now do all the different things that Taysom Hill does for you if he's not able to play. But look, Dallin Holker could potentially get his NFL debut to help out at tight end. Adam Prentice plays more at fullback, or you can bump Foster Moreau back to playing some fullback. You can bump Dallin Holker back to playing some fullback. There are some things that you can do there. You can elevate a Jonathan Abram or an Isaiah Stallbird to help you out on the special team side in terms of special teams coverage and things like that. Instead of having Taysom Hill back there returning punts or returning kicks with Rashid Shaheed, you can have Jamal Williams back there, who's an outstanding blocker, but also has the speed to potentially, give you some good return yards if you decide to kick to him, just like you can get with Taysom Hill, or have Jordan Mims do it. So there's like, you have the options. It's not like the Saints are starving for those options. Do you have a little bit of a drop off at some of those spots? Sure. whether it be experience related, whether it be talent related, whether it be versatility related, whatever it might be, but you're still going to play to your brand. And that's why I think it's so important for the team to have identity. And they finally have that over on that side of the football.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we kind of broke it down. We talked about it that the way this personnel is for Clint Kubiak, it centers around 5 players. It's Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, and then Alvin Kamara. And of course, there's a lot sprinkled in. Look, I think Adam Prentice deserves a lot of credit here.
Dude.
Like he's playing his you know what off. And this is a guy that everybody hated last year, you know, for the most part because of 2 plays, maybe. And that's not fair to him. But again, you see the value in a fullback. He won that competition early. And again, he's just somebody that comes in, does the work. I mean, we remember seeing him with Rick Dennison, just him and Rick Dennison working together.
Literally.
Like that was it during drills. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to be the only one that does this drill. You know what I mean? But, you know, I think they can lean on the passing game a little bit more, even though they don't have to. I mean, that front from the Eagles is going to be interesting. I'm interested to see what Trevor Penning does this week. You know, I feel confident in Taliesin Fuanga. He's playing like a 5-year vet already.
Man, insane.
And Lucas Patrick is coming off of the highest graded game last week, 97 plus on PFF. And Eric McCoy looked really good. And so, look, I think their brand of football is let's go push them in the trenches. Let's confuse them a little bit. And then let's find some passing success. And if they can sustain some drives, I think it puts a lot more pressure on a Jalen Hurts and a Saquon Barkley, just kind of talking about earlier stuff. And then, of course, there's that one guy in the safety group and in the back end that we're curious to see if they're going to end up playing and such. So, but, you know, it'll be fun to watch CJ Gardner-Johnson maybe actually play in this game.
Yeah, we'll see. He's missed the last 2 with injury over the course of the past couple of years with the Eagles and then with the Detroit Lions last year. This year, he's popped up on the injury report for Thursday and Friday with a foot injury. He did tell Philadelphia media, even though he declined to speak about his foot injury, he did tell the media there, see you Sunday. So it sounds like he's at least, I'll say, I was going to say something, but I'm going to, I'll say it this way. He has an intent to play. It sounds like, right. So we'll see exactly which way that all goes for him. But I think that like the run game is going to be super important for the New Orleans Saints offense. And look, you're going to hear John and I say that every game this year. All right. Cause that's what this offense is predicated
it's a staple.
on.
They're a run first team.
That's it.
They said that.
Finally,
yes.
They're actually doing it after saying that they're going to do it. But you look at Philadelphia right now, averaging in terms of the allowed yards per carry, 6.4 yards per attempt. That's last in the NFL. It's the most in the NFL right now in terms of total rushing yards over on the defensive side. They're 25th in the NFL in terms of rushing EPA. They're the 2nd worst team in the NFL when it comes to that. Now they're going to get linebacker Devin White back, who has some experience playing against New Orleans, has some experience playing against Alvin Kamara, but I don't know how much of an impact that's going to make with this kind of new, system that the New Orleans Saints are running. And so I would keep an eye out on that. And so I think the Saints are going to be in a good place here in terms of being able to do that. I'll give you one other one too, John. The New Orleans Saints are in the top 10. I believe they're 8th in the NFL right now in terms of yards per carry in zone run calls. All right. Just over 5 yards. The Philadelphia Eagles last in the NFL, allowing over 7 yards per carry against zone runs. That is, let me check my notes, bad. And so I think that like that's a place where New Orleans, like that's their identity. That's what they want to do. And I think that pairs really well. Alvin Kamara had 112 of his 115 rushing yards last week against the Dallas Cowboys running outside the tackles. I expect to see a lot more of that up against Philly.
Yeah, we said this on a different show, but they've only had like 29 carries up the middle so far. I'm sorry, 7 plays of carries up the middle, and that's 29th in the NFL in the ranking, but their efficiency is 13th in the league. So everything's going outside, 19 plays to the left end, 11 to the right end, 9 off right tackle, 8 off left tackle. I mean, it's almost like they're doing the thing that they said they were going to be doing. It's crazy. Yeah. And they're having the success to do it. And so you're right. I mean, this is a big deal. And of course, Zach Bond, that's another one everybody's kind of like, oh man, he went to the Eagles and look at him, what he's doing. But I mean, you got Willie Gay Jr., like you pointed out in previous shows. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, and go back to those who know, check us, because we did talk about that. But it's it's going to be more of a, I think the Saints don't have to have a rush tempo here. I don't think they have to change anything wild up. I could say that on their next several opponents, like with Atlanta right behind them in Kansas City. I feel like they can still play this brand of football, and that defense that's going to figure them out. Like at some point that there's going to be a defense that figures them out and slows them down. And then it's going to be like, okay, Derek Carr has to be this passing the ball, or the Saints are going to have to adapt, or Clint Kubiak's going to have to do something different. But this scheme works against your next several opponents, but of course it's just Philly. And I feel like they can go in here and they're riding a hot hand. I don't know if you had to put a score prediction on it. What do you think is how this plays out?
I'm thinking like 30-20. You know what I mean? I think that the Saints can get to that 30 point mark. I think the Saints defense should be able to hold Philly, I'll say around 20 points. It could be a little bit over 20, maybe 24 or something like that. But I can't not pick the Saints in this game. Like there's just so much of this that works in their favor. We just laid out the run stats. We laid out the zone run stats. Philadelphia is one of the top teams in the NFL running cover 3 and cover 6. There's a lot of good things that you can do against those types of coverages. It's very zone heavy. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed have been excellent at finding spots in the zone. Same thing for Juwan Johnson. Like there's just so much about what this offensive attack does that should work against this Philadelphia defense, which has not been a lot to write home about over the course of the first 2 games this season against opponents that are, you know what I mean? And so I think that there's good things there. I think the one thing that could get New Orleans in trouble is if they let Jalen Hurts' legs dictate the game. That would be the big thing. But even then, I would say that New Orleans has a chance to stay in the game, even if that were to happen, because you can run all you want, but typically you got to pass to score points. So unless there's big things that are breaking out and causing trouble, then I think New Orleans should be able to control this one.
Yeah, I agree. They haven't started 3-0 since the 2013 season. I mean, it's been that long, so they have an opportunity here. I picked them last week. I had the feeling. My feeling was pretty good. I just didn't expect them to beat the dog snot out of Dallas, but I can't pick against them in this game. It's hard, especially off those 2 first games. Now we get to Atlanta next week. I don't know. We'll see based off of this and in Kansas City, but I got to take the Saints. I think they're going to put up 28 is about where I think 28, maybe 17. That's probably where I'd go for the Eagles. I think they're going to have a little bit of success, obviously in this game, but I think this is a game where the Saints just come out, they dominate a good bit, and they get some points up early. Maybe have some drives stall out. We might see a little bit more Matt Hayball, this time around, but instead of late in the fourth quarter. But again, I think this game is more about how the Saints change up their game plan when it comes to Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I think that's my big thing there. And Dennis Allen, he's smart at doing that, right? And so I feel like he'll be able to do that. And because Kubiak's got the offense, they've thrown out some crazy stuff. I don't know you've seen that stuff in New Orleans. He's like, I'm literally just Clint Kubiak. That's the meme that's going on, which is funny.
That was a LouisianaSports.net original right there.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because nowadays everybody takes it and just passes.
Yeah.
So we know that stuff, but. Yeah, that's good to see, but I got to take the Saints. They're just not a team that can be stopped right now. And then what do we know?
Plus the dome, like the dome impact too. Like I know we opened the show talking about it, but we should factor that into the predictions too. Like plus the dome impact. Like man, like I can't wait to see us versus them. They've got the legend of the game at this game is going to be Drew Brees. Will he, won't he lead the Who Dat chant? Like there's going to be a lot here that's going to ignite this crowd and ignite this audience. And I'll tell you what, if New Orleans is able to score on the first possession of each half, like their first possession of each half, whichever order that comes in, I think that's another big signifier for them controlling this game too, because you got to get out, you got to get out fast twice typically in these types of matchups. I don't know if New Orleans is going to score 30 points in the first half again, like they did the last 2 weeks, but if they can muster, in the teens in the first half and then add on to that in the second half early, I think that ends up making a big impact for them too. Yeah,
for sure, man. Well, that is your Saints Eagles game preview. Of course, we could.
You're welcome. No,
forever talking about this. The big week 3 matchup. A lot of fun stuff coming up. Speaking of coming up, what's coming up at LouisianaSports.net and Locked On for you, man?
Yeah, I put my column out on Friday morning that I hope that people will take the time to go and check out. The whole column's all about how the New Orleans Saints are fun again, and it's time to embrace it. That's what the whole column's about. So please go and
Straightforward.
check that out. Really proud of that. Got some about 5 things to watch coming up. Had a great conversation with offensive line coach John Benton that really gave some really nice insight in terms of how the offense prepares, how Trevor Penning kind of made his um, let's call it development, how we flipped the switch basically, and much more. So really awesome. John's super, super
Yeah.
insightful, like just
Yes.
is giving, like really, really
Yes.
giving. So he was awesome to talk to. So I have some of those pieces up as well. What you got
Awesome.
over on Saints on SI?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the weekly rhythm and flow. We got weekly fantasy advice and the betting advice coming up and such. So that'll be something that everybody loves to watch out. And then game day, you know how busy we are. So it's still
Hmm.
working on some extra features and stuff on some players and things, but nothing that's ready just yet. But of course,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the guys there, Kyle and Bob and Terry,
Hmm.
they're kicking things into high gear over at Saints News Network. So definitely go check out all our work on Sports Illustrated and such. But man, time flies when we do these, Ross. We got a fun weekend ahead. Another big game in the Superdome. Last one until October 13th when the Bucks come to town, and then they're going to have a
Yeah,
short week. So they're going to have Kansas City on that Monday night, then the Bucks in the Superdome. Then they're going to have 4 days later Sean Payton and the Broncos coming to town. So
be a tough
really
one.
interesting. Yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be an interesting stretch here soon. So we'll see how it plays out. We like the Saints this weekend. We can't pick against them. Hopefully, you can't pick against them either, unless you're probably from Philly. But then,
We get
maybe
it.
it's a Philly in it. You get it, yeah, you
Yeah,
get it.
we get
No,
it.
no,
We get
no fault of your own.
it.
But anything can happen, right? But
Right.
that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe button. Second and Saints. We will have plenty of post game coverage once it's all said and done. Good, bad, or ugly, we'll be there. So tune in, hit those notification buttons. And on behalf of Ross Jackson, I am John Hendricks signing out. Have a good one, guys. Stay good, people.
Love you.